They are here. I just left them someplace in Leeds. Oh, well, we did the thing with Jim Thompson today. It was Well, do you have it? Oh, wow. Yeah, I was here trying to get Tim to for all this. I love that. Oh, really? Well, I was supposed to go with my tutor. I they all well, that was it.
Good afternoon. My name is Margaret Dunn. I'm the Director of Marketing of the Pacific Design Center. As a highlight of Westweek 2012, I'm happy to present what makes an A-team, successful partnering on luxury estates, how to maintain a perfect storm without stormy weather. I'm excited to present to you 5 people who each share a passion for design and also know how to manage large projects while working with lots of personalities, a schedule, a budget, and a lot of 11th hour curveballs. Before I begin, I'd like to especially thank the AIA, ASID, and California Homes Magazine for putting this program together. I would also like to thank Elevator Boutique for generously hosting the reception after our presentation. Moderating our panel today is Susan McFadden, founder and editor-in-chief of California Homes Magazine. This year, this will be the magazine's 15th anniversary. Please join me in welcoming Susan McFadden, who is now going to introduce our panel.
Thank you, Margaret. It's a pleasure to be here today, and we have a great panel. But what makes the A-team? And as editor of California Homes, I have had the opportunity to view some of the most outstanding luxury projects, and many that have graced the cover of our magazine. And often I have wondered just what it takes to complete these extraordinary estates. We know, as industry insiders of the built environment, that nothing is effortless, and that what is required is nothing less than a titanic effort to coordinate a team that is all working together for the good of the project, and of course, most importantly, for the good of the client. But we also know how difficult that is to achieve, and therein lies the perfect storm. So, today we are fortunate to have a stellar panel of 18 players who know what it takes to make a high-end residential project successful and can share with us some of the biggest challenges they face in working not only with the client, but of course with each other. We would all like to know what catapulted them into this league and what valuable lessons they have learned. So with that in mind, I'd like to introduce the panel. And we will begin with this gentleman to my left, William Hefner. He is an architect, and his fascination with architecture, nurtured by international travel as a student that fully awakened his appreciation for art and detail, led to the pursuit of his career. After earning a Bachelor of Arts degree in art history including a year of study in Greece. He went on to receive his Master of Architecture degree from UCLA. Hefner then worked for Skidmore, Owings & Merrill before founding William Hefner Architecture, Interiors, and Landscape in 1989. What distinguishes his diverse portfolio is an aesthetic sensibility that combines livability with the luxury of details and materials. The firm's work is elegant, expressing an appreciation of craft with an emphasis on natural materials. His projects have been widely featured in numerous publications, both national and international. In 2007, the Robb Report named Hefner a member of the top 30 architects of the world for luxury residence. Thank you, William, for being here today.
Thank you very much.
And next in line, Mark David Levine. We all know and love Mark. He's been around as one of the country's most prestigious landscape designers, having worked with many prestigious and well-known business and motion picture giants in California and New York. Each garden environment that Mark David Levine creates reflects his own passion and vision as much as his client's ultimate desires. Throughout the process, he works in symphony with the client, architect, interior design, and builder. The result of each creative journey is breathtaking. Thank you again, David, for being here. And next, we have Monique Lafia. Hold on a minute to get her. I can't memorize these bios, that's for sure. Interior designer Monique Lafia of Lafia Arvin grew up in Philadelphia. After obtaining her design degree from UCLA, Monique spent 9 years as a design assistant for highly respected veteran Los Angeles designer Waldo Fernandez. I am pleased to have been one of the first to recognize Monique's elegant design style when we selected her work on Rob Lowe's Montecito residence for the cover of California Homes in summer 1999. Monique's first major estate design work was so special that Architectural Digest published the same residence in 2001. And that's the first time I think the Digest has done that, and probably the last time. Monique was honored as a top Los Angeles designer by the Franklin Report, and the Robb Report chose her as one of the top 40 designers in the world. We're honored to have had several of Monique's projects grace the covers of California Homes, and I am pleased to showcase her 5th cover on our November-December issue later this year, a gorgeous French estate at LA Country Club in Beverly Hills. Thank you, Monique, for giving me all these great projects, too. Wonderful. And now, the construction manager. And this is the great part of this panel, is learning something that I didn't know. What really does a construction manager do? And Bart Mindell is the president of Stonemark Construction Management, a full-service firm with offices in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, and has been a dedicated construction professional for over 35 years, with major residential and commercial projects located throughout the U.S. and Canada. Known as the Zen Master of the Bottom Line, Bart manages complex, multi-layered construction projects with precision, knowledge, harmony, and patience. And patience is a quality he knows something about. A longtime Buddhist practitioner, Bart brings the centered approach to every project, even in the midst of challenging chaos. Bart grew up in Dallas and attended the University of Texas. He and his wife, Susan, have 2 sons and reside in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles. Welcome, Bart. So we're going to start at the beginning, and I have a question for each of you, but we'll start with William. Maybe you can answer it first, and they'll start talking amongst themselves, and pretty soon I won't even have to talk. But how did you each become A-team players, and which estate projects raised you into this high-end league? How do designers and architects best put themselves forward to obtain these prestigious projects? Start with you.
Okay. All right, thank you. So in my case, it's really been a case of us growing up with our clients. I mean, I started the office about 20 years ago, and as we have grown as an office, we've had a number of repeat clients. Those clients have, liked the process, and they sort of bite off a bigger and bigger project all the time. And, their friends have been growing. So it's just really been a sense of the time in there. And then just, you know, in our case, also not trying to tackle something that's so big for us that we would fail, but so it's been a gradual process for us, and we've been finishing the work we've done and making the clients happy. So.
Great. Monique, you want to add to that?
For myself as well, I started my business being a UCLA student and also working for 9 different designers, and definitely launching the cover of California Homes with the Montecito project was really a turning point in my career. And like William was saying, I've had many clients that I've done several homes for them, such as 6, 7 homes. I've grown up with the families through marriages, kids going off to college, whether they're getting building an estate or a getaway. And when I get those kind of clients and the referrals, like William was saying, that is the highest compliment you can get when you actually are getting their best friend as a referral, because you want to make sure that you're treating them with the utmost respect and everyone's working well together. So that was a big launching part of my career as well.
Great. Mark?
It was a little bit different for me. I graduated Cal Poly Pomona in 1981, and I started working. I was doing projects, and I was very fortunate. I did a few projects, and it was really word of mouth for me. And maybe 6 or 7 years later, I got a call. I'll never forget this, because I wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing, on the right path. I loved my field, it was my hobby. And I got a call from a gentleman, and he says to me, "Mark, I would love you to come over and take a look at my home in Beverly Hills. It's on Schuyler Road. It's not a very large project, but I would love you to help me." And it was Norman Kreis of the Kreis Collection. And I thought, wow, that's really an honor. So I went up there and I met Eileen and Norman, and I gave them my ideas and thoughts, my vision for their small space. They obviously gave me theirs. They were such nice people. I respected them so much. And subsequently, I did the gardens, and it got published in Los Angeles Times Magazine in May of 1989. And that was my first publication. I was so excited. But as much as it was meant for me to do that and to have that publication do well for me, that wasn't the most important message for me. What was really wonderful is Eileen said to me, "You know, Mark, this is one of the most beautiful gardens I have ever seen. Thank you so much." Well, you know what? It was great getting published, but to get that validation from design icons like Norm and Eileen, that was special to me. And I said to myself, I walked away, and I was thinking, you know, maybe I am in the right field, and I think it sort of gave me the impetus to go further.
Well, you certainly were in the right field. That's for sure. Bart, how about you?
Well, I certainly started at the bottom 35 years ago as a plumber's helper. I learned some very interesting things about life and about other things. And I gradually worked my way up from plumber's helper to plumbing contractor to general contractor to construction manager. And most of which was commercial, not high-end residential. And some years ago, I would have my commercial clients come to me and say, "Well, can you do our home for us?" And I would keep telling them no. And my wife would kick me and say, "What is the matter with you? These homes are they're like little hotels. They're very complex, and you're perfectly suited for it." So fortunately, I had the opportunity to work on a project in Montecito with Mark Appleton, and that really kind of launched my foray into the high-end home industry, this whole arena, and we've really enjoyed it ever since.
I have another question for you, and tell us why it is so crucial to have every team member on board at the beginning as opposed to weaving them in and out during different junctures of the project.
Well, our philosophy, a construction manager, of course, is kind of like the person holding the marionette strings or the orchestra leader. So how do you have an orchestra if you don't have all the musicians playing? So we really emphasize, and I think it's important for any project, early planning. And so most of the projects that have problems are because they haven't been well planned from the very beginning. And so maybe the architect's retained and not the interior designer, the landscape architect, or whatever. They're not coming in and they're not coordinating. So we always emphasize to bring in the entire team as early as possible, including the contractor, and really then the whole thing can sing.
And a question for you, William.
Yes.
How can a team work together to avoid surprises during the bidding and construction process, and how do you best communicate with your other team members, like email or Facebook or just personal calls or on-site meetings? What works best, do you think?
Maybe to answer your question in reverse, I think the communication, these days there's a lot of email back and forth, but everybody together in a room at the job site is the best way, I think, to communicate, and having everybody there with the same understanding. And I think with the client, it also is important to have the client be there. Even by keeping them in touch with phone and email, they just don't understand the project.
It's better that they're there.
Yeah, and I think this kind of project, larger projects are overwhelming enough for us, but for the clients, they're really overwhelming. So what we try to do is really serve up information to them in sort of digestible chunks, so that say, okay, I see. This is what I'm deciding today, and same thing. And it's very important to avoid surprises, because they don't take surprises well, or they feel cornered with surprises in that. So I think we have a policy of not telling a client about a problem till we have a solution. So we say, we have this issue on the job site. It came up. Here are 2 or 3 ways we could solve it, and this is what we think you should do, so they don't have to spend the night, wake up at night thinking, oh, they have this problem at the job site, they don't know how to solve it. So it's very important for us to kind of manage them in that way.
You said something the other day to me, and I remember you said it's better to don't tell them the problem until you have a couple of solutions to that problem.
Right.
Because if you do tell them, they'll stay up all night worrying.
Yes.
But if you can wait until you've solved some of the problems,
Right.
and
You have to show them the way out. You have to say, wow,
Right.
we have this big problem, wow. And
But
then
this is what we
all
can
go
do.
away. Yeah, and this is what we can do. So.
Monique, go ahead, you want to say something?
I was just going to say, I agree with what William is saying, because that's really where working with the team together, and someone like Bart and someone like Mark and William, where we could get together and discuss financially what the implication is going to be for a client for certain changes, whether the moldings are going to be from J.P. Weaver as opposed to standard moldings. So it's really important that the team is working together and then troubleshooting, like you're saying, ahead of time, and then that avoids the surprises.
Right.
I'd like to add something to that too. You asked about early planning.
Right.
And I think so many decisions are made absent cost or absent schedule. And it's really, that's what creates problems where, so there's a design decision made on a type of material or a product, and the cost isn't really fully discussed. And then this kind of goes on and on and on, and then you have a crisis point. So this is where all the team members being on board, including someone who's looking at cost and schedule, so that the owner can make informed decisions and not in a vacuum.
Well, nobody wants a surprise about cost, especially the client.
Can I add something?
No.
Not to repeat, but I will repeat. I think that lifestyles have changed so much today in attacking a very large project. 15, 20 years ago, it was, let's hire the architect, and then okay, I met the architect. Now I'm going to call the interior designer, and then maybe don't worry about the landscape architect now. and we don't need a construction manager, right, Bart? Yeah. So what has happened? Because I think the home has changed. It's more of a hub now. Clients, homeowners don't fight the traffic to get to the Metroplex 5 days a week. They may go 3 or 4, but that extra day, they're in their home. It used to be, well, gee, I would like to see a waterfall, water slides, all the extravaganza. Now they want an outdoor room, a living room, a retreat. Well, some of these spaces are adjacent to the architecture and the interior designer. So it just makes total sense when you're planning an overall environment. We're not doing things, sequentially, but we're doing them together.
Right.
So if Bill is brought on, well, it's good that when the landscape architect, the interior designer, even the builder's mindset is that we're going to do this, together. Number one, it builds confidence in the client, they're content, and they know we're relating between the arts. It wasn't that way, I don't believe, at least for me, even 10 years ago. Now, all these meetings, weekly meetings, they're about all the arts and discussing philosophy before the art. So that has been really, I think, the biggest change. So to have a group, like if I'm getting called and I know that there's maybe not a landscape architect or an architect, I'll refer, why don't you talk to 2 or 3 people and see if you're comfortable, and let's get a philosophy now. And then once we have that, they feel good that everybody sort of knows each other, they're following that philosophy, then they can start to formulate concepts based on a philosophy.
Right. It prevents a lot of problems.
Yes.
And I think that's something that everybody's learning. I mean, people like you and you, Monique, everybody in this business and doing these very large estates. It's a little different than doing, say, a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home. First of all, the client is very particular and they're spending an enormous amount of money. But secondly, there's all the technical, electrical, and all the new gadgets in every house. I mean, you have to be a wizard to figure out the computer system alone. But very good point, Mark.
Well, and the other thing is, if you keep the client informed every minute almost of the day, whether it's just simple a text message, I always let my clients say, hey, you have an idea? Shoot me a text. I'll put it in your file. Because you might think of something, and maybe your husband thinks it, or vice versa. Get me that information. When they feel that they're really being taken care of, they're content, then they're empowered. Then they feel good about the project, and they don't mind investing more monies to get what they want.
Right.
If they're sort of wallowing around in a philosophy, if you will, it's not good for everybody.
Monique, I have a question for you. Monique's the most organized person I know, probably in my whole life, but she's obsessive. But what is the most important thing you can do for your client? What is the most important thing you can do for your client?
Well, I would say something that's so important for your client is to really get to know their lifestyle. Ask them questions. How do you use this room? How do you use this space? Eventually, your kids are going to go off to college. Is this a home that your grandchildren are going to come? What's your lifestyle? A lot of times I ask clients, I'll go over to their house for dinner so I can get a sense of how they cook. Do they have a chef? Do they bring in food? It makes a difference in terms of the fabrics I'm selecting. I went to a client's house and they happen to use a lot of exotic oils. Well, it's important to stay away from silks when you use a lot of exotic oils and lean more towards the velvets and the chenilles. Things are a little more durable because that's their lifestyle versus another client, a $20 million brownstone in New York, where they're going to actually have the food catered and brought in. That's a different type of interior. So like Mark was saying, the key is really the communication with your client at all times. And when you exceed their expectations, they walk in, I'm doing an installation. It's the greatest feeling as a designer that the client, after a process sometimes of 3-4 years, walks into their home and they say, this is more than what I had even imagined. And they invite the team over to have an intimate dinner in their home, and I'm actually using the living room with them, sitting there, fireplace going, enjoying a glass of wine, and their home, it becomes their home. It's no longer a construction site. The doors are open, the fountain's going, and you can see how all the elements, Mark's work, William's work, Bart's work, because we're all speaking to each other, so obviously your work was successful because the money didn't go over the top, so everyone's happy, and that leads on to referrals, and that's really a designer's dream, is when you see the family happy.
Can I add on to that? So what you just said about part of a very successsul project is that the team doesn't kill each other, and that or the client or vice versa. And so what I think is really important is the ability to listen carefully to what people are saying, not just the client, but the rest of the project team. A lot of what we do as project managers is to resolve disputes or prevent disputes. And I find invariably when people are arguing, they are actually not arguing about exactly the same thing.
They don't realize that.
Yeah, of course they don't realize that. They may be talking about the same thing, maybe money or maybe whatever.
But stop, because the next question's for you and you're answering it.
Oh, I'm psychic. That's why you're the construction manager. That's part of, yeah.
No, this is the question. Just what does a construction manager do?
Oh.
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, good question. So, well, we're basically we're on the business end of a construction project, primarily in terms of managing budget and schedule from the very beginning. But that's only a part of our role, and a big part is really, I like to say, being the oil or the grease that lubricates the rest of the team, so that every part of the team is moving and optimally, which means that things are moving as quickly as possible, so we're saving on time, and we're not wasting any effort. So I like to say, although I would never put this in a contract, that if the owner is mad at any person in the team, then I'm not doing my job. But I won't contractually agree to that.
No. I have a question for Mark. So many of these projects are susceptible for going over budget, as we know, and how do you define the scope in advance to anticipate budgetary problems?
I've been doing it pretty much the same way for 30 years, and that is the first thing I do is I talk to the husband and wife, and I ask them to really reflect and think about their environment. It's not just about you, it's about your family, your friends. What do you want to convey about your space, the feeling, the essence? You're doing an environment. I want you to write me a wish list, a feeling list, an amenity list, essences, the spirit, the soul. I want you to get it on paper. I would like your husband to do the same. At the end, if you want to send me a collaborative, that's great. I have one. But you know what? It's about satisfying and bringing contentment to both. We're the art vehicles in a way. Not you, Bart.
No.
We're the art vehicles in a way. And so we want to make sure that they're really content. Once that's done, we formulate, we get good feedback. I can formulate a concept plan, ideas. I call it the art phase. We design the art phase, we present the art phase. Once the art phase is approved, I might go through 2 or 3 revisions, and I always ask, I said, do you want to talk about budget now, or can we just get your ideas, filter them, see where we're at? We're only on paper here. We can change at any time, but let's do some creative options here for you. So it's always worked really well for me. Once that happens, within 2 to 3 weeks of presenting a concept that's approved, we get a cost range, not finals, because it has to go to engineering and so on. But they have an idea. They feel good about the direction. They see, and I said, you know, you have to be a little bit of the designer yourself in what are your hierarchy of importance, your priorities. Once they stipulate that, we can say, hey, here's some options on your most important things. Here's some other things. You may want to phase the project, but the best thing we can do is give you direction so you're not doing things twice. We get the prices, and then we give it to them. They know where they're at.
William, this is an interesting question. What member of the team has the most liability?
I think the construction.
Yeah, that's right.
Contractor.
I think you're right. I think that's the right answer.
Really?
I'd say structural engineer and architect are right behind them, but.
Okay, and also a question for Monique. What are the special challenges that come up on these substantial projects? And what do you think are the keys to getting along on these 3 to 4 year long-term projects? Because I'm sure there can be a lot of problems in 3 or 4 years.
I would say over the course of the biggest challenge is with the changing technology, which is great, Steve Jobs and all the iPhones and the iPads, but more and more clients I have to integrate my design aesthetics with the Apple TV or different kind of TVs, or where the wires are going, where the outlets are going, are not necessarily the way I'd like it to be with the furniture. So that is definitely a challenge right there. I'll have a placement of furniture, and then the AV guy will be sticking some big something somewhere, and I'll say, where did this come from? And so that's a challenge, but really, how do I keep the projects going? I would say it has a lot to do with my attitude. I'm very excited about design, very passionate about it. I see it as someone's preparing for the marathon, sometimes they're midway through, their knees are weak, their body's falling apart, and I've got to keep the whole team and everybody going. And the weekly meetings are the key, where everyone is communicating. And we could be stressed to the hilt, but it's important that like you were saying, to convey to the client the confidence. And I always reassure them, in 22 years, I've done this, I have the experience, I can see the end result before the client. That's one of my projects right there in Beverly Hills. The ability to see it before it actually is even built. And I believe so strongly in my vision, in the passion, that's what the client, I convey that to them.
Well, the confidence is so important. If they feel that you don't have that confidence, that's very scary to them, I'm sure.
And also, too, I think it's really important where sometimes you're friends with your clients. You really want them to confide in you. They're stressed, things aren't going well. Well, what is it? Just what's their timeline? When are they moving in? The financial issues. So you just really work together as a team, and that's what makes it come together.
Oh, I'm sorry. One thing I was going to add is if a designer comes off, at least this is my opinion, as sort of wishy-washy and not sure of the concepts they're delivering, it's not a good thing. You have to be sure about your concepts, and you also have to show your passion and your love of what you're doing. If you can show that, you're halfway there.
Then it works
Plus
out.
It works out. It's smooth. It's wonderful. But if you get them excited, that's what it's about, and they really feel good. The other thing is, when you initially have, I think, a meeting with them, I always let my potential clients know. I said, I know you want to get to know me, and I appreciate that, but I want to get to know you as well. I want to make sure this is a good fit for the both of us. I think we're so worried, especially in today's climate, of procuring projects, that we have to really be good listeners and hear what the potential clients may or may not be.
Right, and you have no hidden agenda. You are so upfront about everything,
That's
and that's
right.
what I like about you. And I think it's important with a client to be that way, because if you're not, there's going to be a problem
No, you
later
can't.
on.
You have to be.
So this is for all of you. I'm going to start with William. If you could do this all over again, what is the most important lesson that you've learned from all your experiences?
Well,
That's a big question, I know. If you could do it all over again, would you do it all over again? You probably would.
I would.
Yes, you would.
I guess it all over again, the career. I guess the
Right.
thing that I would have, that would have been nice to understand more completely is really sort of the complexity of these projects. I think when you are first starting out, these projects look kind of easy in a way. I mean, not necessarily really big projects, but an architecture like a house or something like that, in that it's a creative endeavor and you're doing you coordinate with the structural guy and everything seems to be beautiful. But they're so complex in terms of the, directing the contractor and kind of keeping the owner on board and managing the whole process, and then managing all the consultants, like getting all the electrical in the right spot and all that. And I think that I was sort of unprepared when I first started out for sort of how technical at times you have to be and how much you have to drill down on things to balance it out. There are just so many characters competing
many
for
aspects.
space in a house, like the mechanical guy and the electrical guy and the sound guy. And the interior designer have their agenda, and the landscape guy has his. And you're trying to keep a client happy and avoid surprises, and the contractor, often they march to their own beat of the drum, and it does require, it's kind of like they say it's 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration.
That's
just
right.
realizing the kind of team you need in place to make that work. You can't do it by yourself. You have to build a team of people within your office to tackle that, and that they have to be up to speed on all these various things. So I think it's really the importance of building kind of the right team and that. So.
Being consistent. Bart, how about you? Would you do this all over?
Well, I don't. Yes, I would.
Good.
But let me answer this in a little different way. I've always felt that there's kind of a focus point or a key point when a project starts to work, and everything up until that point is kind of groveling to get the definition,
Right.
to get the project kind of off the ground. And every project has a challenge. It could be a design challenge, it could be a permitting challenge, a money challenge, it could be artistic, whatever. And there's always a moment where it starts to sing. And the way I define this is, quite a long time ago, I was working for a very large construction company, and we were doing a commercial project for a Boys and Girls Club. And they were trying to, they had a giant addition that they planned on the back of their building, and the neighbors were fighting it because it was so big, and it was because of the size of the addition, which was designed to house a swimming pool. And it had to be so big in order to get the pool inside, and that was just killing the project. So I was the project manager, and we brought the whole team together. It was like 14 people, and there was a structural engineer, and the architect, and the client, and all these different people. And it was like, well, what are we going to do? We have this problem. And at some point, someone in the room, and I like to think it was me, but I'm not sure, said, what if we put the pool in the basement of the existing building? And everybody burst out laughing. So this is an old, 160-year-old rubble foundation building in Charleston, Massachusetts. And there's not even a basement, there's a crawl space about 2 feet deep. And so everyone laughed. And so then I asked the architect, well, is it actually the right size? Will it fit? And the architect said, well, yes, but. And I said, okay. And I asked the structural engineer, well, is it technically possible to excavate down and shore up these walls and build a foundation for it? He said, well, yeah, it's technically possible. Well, of course, the pool was built in the basement. And that's exactly what happened. And that saved the project. The addition became smaller, it went within budget, everybody was happy. So I like to think in every project, there's a pool in the basement moment.
I hope so. Very good, Bart. That was cute. Monique?
I would have to say, the longer I'm in my profession, actually, the longer I'm actually enjoying it more and more. And the last few years, with the recession, I've definitely been challenged, and I've actually enjoyed the challenge. It's been frustrating at times, but more and more, I'm actually embracing it, and I find it's a chance to get to new vendors, work with different price points, different budgets, really working closely with the team more than ever. Really, I find that who's ever working really is appreciating it so much more. There's a real consciousness around that. A lot of the furniture I've had made for a recent project was all made in Los Angeles, and the fabrics were from Europe. But there was a certain excitement, even the clients really took a lot of pride in that this was actually made here in Los Angeles. I would go actually tour some of the warehouses or factories, look at the furniture. And all my worldly travels, I've been to France, Italy, Germany, and just it all has come together now, I have to say. It's a very exciting time. It worked really hard, like William was saying. There's a lot of challenges. It's very technical, much more than I had anticipated. Like Mark was saying, it's your art, but it's also so much is technical, and also a lot with budgets. You really have to proposal, price points, presenting that to the client. And I think when you educate your client and they understand why something costs X versus something else, they understand that, and they start making choices. Like Mark was saying, it's very empowering, and they can make a choice. And I'm really just enjoying it more now than ever, actually.
Well, because you've had such great experience, but also just the technical, you have to know so much more today than you did 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, it's just amazing. And I keep reading every day. There's something I don't know that I have to learn. I don't know if I have time to do all that or not.
Just but like you're saying, that's really where you do rely on the team.
Right.
The team really comes in.
You can't do it without a team.
And you ask questions. You defer to the experts, like you're saying. So it is a challenge every day, learning something new, asking questions. Challenges come up that you can't even imagine now with all the technical part.
And people are really watching their budget, even if they're multimillionaires. I mean, sometimes they're the most particular. You spend $50,000 where they didn't know. I mean, people are just, you have got to know you have the budget right on. You can't go over budget unless the wife convinces the husband to do it. But sometimes husband and wives can also be a little problem when they start arguing about budget. But Mark, how about you?
I probably would have done it like a different kind of art, like maybe a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills, or maybe like a reality show producer.
Oh, put your glasses back on. You look
No,
like
actually,
a producer.
I wouldn't have done anything different. I love what I do. It's my hobby. It's my love. I love interior design. I love architecture. I love gardens, and I love marrying all the arts. So I wouldn't do anything differently.
I was just going to chime in 1 second if it's appropriate.
No,
but
we
about
have plenty of
the
time.
sort of budget thing we were talking about, because this is about larger projects. Just that I found the larger projects are much more challenging to manage the budget. You sort of drive by these projects and think, oh, they have all the money in the world to spend, and it's a piece of cake. But it's really difficult because
sure.
because of sort of the scale of the projects. Like little moves, you can say, I think we should change the baseboard to that. Suddenly, it's a $50,000 change order just because of the size of the project. Or, I found we have a large project going right now in Bel Air, and it's the hardest budget I've ever managed. And, it is.
It's the largest house you've probably ever done.
Yes, it's done as well. But it's, you think, okay, you know the overall budget's not a problem, but these little tweaks that you want to make, which seem little, by the time they get thrown out, you have 600 downlights, or you have 200 doors, and you just want to, I'd like the panel to be raised a little more, and suddenly, it's 6 figures every time you want to do something. So, to keep your client's trust, you really have to decide what is really, really important and vital for the house to do, and what isn't. So, it changes how you approach the work.
Changes and revisions are inevitable. And so, the client needs to know that, we know that there's going to be changes. It's okay, but that, we're not magicians. We'll do the best we can for you. We'll get these prices, these option prices, and we present it to you. But we're not magicians. And they have to understand that very clearly. We'll do the best we can for you.
Right.
I think honesty with costs, it's so important, and frankly, I know a lot of professionals, design professionals, contractors, that will always minimize what they think the costs are going to be because they're afraid of telling the client what they're really going to be.
Well, you can't do that.
Well,
No, you can't.
I
But
think
do
it happens,
people
frankly,
do it?
I think it happens more often than not. And so I really caution against that. I mean,
No.
when we do a budget for a client, it's the largest budget they will ever see. Because
Then you can go
it's-
scale down.
Yes, exactly.
You could
And
say,
then that's a painful meeting. But then the client has the real information, and then if we need to go down, we go down, and then we never have a problem. We never have that conversation again for the other 2 or 3 years. And I think it's the ethical thing to do, and I think people, no matter what your profession, you should be totally upfront and honest about what things are going to cost. And you'll be much happier, and so will your clients. And if somebody fires you, you should have gotten fired anyway because you're not the right person. They
Or
want
maybe
something
they're
that's
not
too
the
cheap.
right client.
Well, that's what I meant.
Right.
That's what I meant. You're the right person. You're the right person for being honest. And
Right. If they can't handle that.
I would rather find that out on the first day
Right.
or the first month than 2 years into the project and then,
Right. We have just a few minutes. Are there any questions? Please, just, yes.
Could each one speak a little bit about, at the end of the project, the money, somebody wasn't very practical, maybe with budgeting, and some of your advice, and the things that have happened, and now you're at the point where it's, a noteworthy project, good for publication, and you're sort of out of fee, and what do you do now at this point? Do you just handle it and finish it up?
I'll let Bart handle it.
Well, are you talking about from the point of view of the design professional? Well, it's certainly, that's a business decision you have to make, if you can. The question was, what do you do at the end of a project when you've run out of fee and it's a significant project, and what do you do? And, well, what can I say? What I do is I try to negotiate and try to be reasonable. Obviously, if you've had a long-term project with a client for 2 or 3 years or more, you want to maintain that good relationship, and that's worth something. And then so you should try to be reasonable. But my perspective as a project manager is to avoid that problem.
Right. That's not a problem anyone
if
wants.
if you are clear it on day one, you're not going to have that problem on day 750.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Yes.
How are you addressing energy efficiency in your new projects?
William should answer that.
I will answer. You know, I mean, energy efficiency, you know, costs money in projects, and so what we've found is that some people are more open to it than others to try to address that problem. We do a number of green projects in the office and highly sustainable. And what we try to do is give the client serve up a series of options. Like, you can do, these are the levels of insulation that you can do. These are the environmental effects of them. This is what you can do in terms of the lighting control system or the lighting efficiency, solar panels, and that. And the difficult thing is a lot of the projects, for stylistic reasons, like say a Spanish Mediterranean house or whatever, or just you're not going to find a spot to put solar panels. Just the way the roofs break up and all that, it's difficult. So you have to try to address other things. But the nice thing is about some of those styles is that the way they are sort of designed. Another question? No. The way they're designed is that you know, it's indigenous architecture and it's sort of evolved in this climate, so they are kind of naturally energy efficient if you do them correctly. So you can get a lot of have bang for that kind of effect. But it's really serving up the option, giving them an idea of the cost of each choice, and seeing what they're willing to do.
And William, you're doing a LEED certified home right now with a.
Right, we're designing a house right now for Ed Begley Jr., which has made us really have to kind of up our game quite a bit. And so we're, and the advantage of that project that's nice is we have people, vendors and things that are coming in the office with the latest kind of products. Because, you know, every 2 weeks you pick up the newspaper or the magazine and their new products. So we've actually had a great opportunity to learn about the latest products. But I feel like the best thing you can do as an architect for energy efficiency in that is sort of design the house right to start with. You know, don't put, you know, a 50-foot high glass wall facing west. I mean, no matter what you do, solar panels and whatever, it's not an energy efficient solution. So it's kind of starting at the basics with the sort of passive solar part first.
Any other questions? Yes.
We have consultants we use. I mean, we're responsible for coordinating it, but depending on the size of the project, if there's sometimes there's a mechanical engineer on a larger project, so he'll be responsible for that. But we typically use consultants for it, though.
Yes.
I'm curious as to when you're getting to this point in your career where you're working on these very large projects, were there resources that you looked at outside of instinct as you're growing to give you the knowledge base to communicate with the people around you? Did you look at different types of models like in corporate America and the designers that are before you so that you could know how to work on this kind of stuff?
Can I answer that?
Please.
Very interesting question, and I rely on my Buddhist training, and I think you should be a totally decent human being, and I think that's the best resource that you can bring to any project. You should never forget that. It may not be a
wonderful
technical.
advice. No, that's really
Anyone
nice.
else?
Well, for myself, having a vast experience with international hotels, and when you have to present to a board and you only have to organize a 60,000 guest room hotel in Yokohama, Japan. I worked on that. I've learned how to organize a project. So when I approached a project that was 20,000 square feet, a home, each room almost became like lots of different lobby lounges, lots of cocktail lounges, in terms of how I was organizing it. And that kind of gave me the confidence and also what a purchasing agent was expecting. So having had that experience really gave me the confidence as I approach these larger projects that I knew I could organize them because I had done that with my hotel experience.
Good background experience, too, for these large residential projects. Anyone last? Okay, go ahead.
Are there certain phrases or hallmarks of values that you want to hear potential partners or vendors or contractors talk about that lead you to believe that
was a question for me, wasn't it? Well, I don't think it's what people say, it's how people are. And I don't think you can fake that. It doesn't really matter what the sales pitch is. It's really just, looking someone in the eye and having open communication and being able to be genuine and honest. I don't think there's any substitute for that. It doesn't matter whether you're building a giant home or you're making a salad for your family. It should pervade your entire life, and so it's how to be, not what you say.
Well, let me just throw a little wrench in that. You're all very authentic and lovely professionals. What if there's a member of your team that you realize real early on is very unethical? What do?
Give them to Bart. Put it on Bart's show.
Well, I mean, if you have it set up properly with contractual controls, obviously the final solution is to dismiss them. But before you do that, giving them the benefit of the doubt, you build a fence around them so that it's a sort of damage control. So you know what their issue is. You keep them focused on just what they're doing. And maybe it's like an electrical engineer, for example. Maybe it's not a major player. You can actually work with them by keeping them away from the client, or I don't know if that really answers your question. But either you do damage control and create, a buffer zone, or at some point you may have to dismiss them. And if you're going to dismiss them, it's better to flush that out and find it out early and go through the difficulty and move on.
Okay, one more question.
How are you seeing the impact of technology and home systems and all of that in these types of projects? What do you comment for that?
I can start with that.
Okay.
Okay, I got it. Okay. Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to. I mean, they're very important parts of these houses, and if you care about the aesthetics, they're also like the really scary part. Like, I hate these things. I hate seeing them. I like what they do, but our goal is to not see them. But it kind of, especially in a larger project, it becomes very complicated to deal with them, and it becomes complicated to change them. Where you can go through a walkthrough and you want to move security stuff or lights or things like that, and they can't just move them in the field like you're used to. They need to go to the engineer, and then they need to get priced, and then this stuff could hold up the project for months. So it requires a lot of upfront work through shop drawings, submittal of shop drawings and review of them, to avoid trying to do it in the field. The learning curve is to know, okay, I know what this little this green symbol means, and I don't want that here, and that kind of thing. So it's trying to flush it out in that early process, meeting with subcontractors and shop drawings.
Good answer.
Yep.
One more question, and then we're going to move on.
I think maybe you have answered somewhat, but I was wondering how do you get chosen by your clients? I mean, maybe your authenticity. What is the thing that you think your client chooses you for?
I would say for myself, how would a client choose me? How would someone select me, let's say, as their designer? And I would say a big part of it is my personality. I'm one of 10. I'm kind of used to chaos. I grew up, child number 7. And I love what I do. I'm real authentic. And like Mark was saying, it's a two-way street. You're kind of interviewing each other. And fortunately, when a client comes from a referral from another client, if it's a best friend, then there's kind of a built-in kind of trust relationship with each other. And you can tell. It's like when you meet someone, there's an instant connection, and you're communicating well. And it's stressful, but you're also here to have a good time. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sometimes our clients are going to build more homes. They're growing together with you. So it's really a partnership. I mean, you know right away if it's a good fit.
Well, okay, that's it.
I have to ask, even if it is a good fit, I found in my years of experience that there's oftentimes things in the relationship of the clients, possibly marital, changing financial, and it seems to me there's a time at which the honeymoon is over.
in projects, and I'm wondering what your experience is with that. And I find oftentimes you're dealing with factors that, you know, when you're in the romantic love stage of the project aren't there.
That's a smart.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah, he's got a great solution for that.
I don't, what's the question? I thought he was going to answer it. Can you repeat the
What do you
question?
do when the
What?
love is gone? On a project.
When the
Does that mean you don't
project-
get your final check?
Yeah.
New
First,
client.
the rose, you know, is off, the bloom is off the rose.
Well,
so
I don't
to
know.
speak.
I don't think it ever. I've never really had to
You've
get
never
that
had that
far.
problem.
I really haven't.
No.
I think if you do organization,
Good
you're a good
planning.
listener, at planning
Budget's
way early.
settled.
I mean, way early. That's all settled.
Well, what
Now,
if they
listen,
get a
not to say
divorce?
somebody-
What if there's a nasty
Oh,
divorce?
that happens, and I pay for therapy for the divorce.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, try to keep that project going.
Good. Okay. Okay, just a couple of things. First of all, I don't think everybody received a copy of California Homes. If you want the newest issue coming out this Friday, leave your card on the desk outside and we'll send each one of you, if you want, a new copy of the magazine. And I believe at this time that ASID would like to make an announcement.
Thank you very much. I'm Pamela Meyer, President of the LA chapter of ASID, and I wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our panel, our esteemed panel, for sharing your insights with us. But I'd also very much like to thank our Professional Development Director, Cheryl Fleischer, who came to us and the PDC back in the fall with this fabulous idea. So Cheryl. So much hard work goes into these events, and we really appreciate all of you for coming out and sharing your time with us today.
And also to Christine Anderson.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now every one of us are invited to Elevator Boutique, which is downstairs on the first floor, B110, and refreshments, hors d'oeuvres, wine, and we have a chance to talk to the panelists then at that point. Thank you for coming. It was great to see all of you. Thank you.